So we've just reviewed some of the competencies in that having to do with musical instruments and the music that's played on them.
Yeah.
And we found that while there's some general guidelines, like, being proficient on guitar, voice, piano, percussion, leading ensembles, there's a little bit of a difference between the competencies for those different instruments. For example, we should be able to sing lots of songs, folk songs, contemporary songs from different periods in time. We should be able to play piano and piano music. We should be able to play guitar and folk music and contemporary songs on guitar.
Right.
But when it comes to percussion, there's no mention of the music that's played with percussion. In other words, there's nothing about, it says ethnic instruments that we should be able to play some techniques,
Yeah.
but nothing about the music. The music itself from that would normally be played on those instruments.
Right.
So what do you think's going on there, and how can we move forward and get into that?
Part of this has to do with the history of music therapy, the history of music education in this country, the history of music in this country, being historically, and I think there's a shift, but the arc is slow.
Yeah.
That it's a Eurocentric model. It's a model that really focuses on melody and harmony and the instruments that promote that, that exemplify that. And there are all of these instruments from all over the world that are thinking in a different way musically.
Right.
I mean, in some ways, not that different. The melody and harmony exist, but they're not tempered pitches. They're pitch relationships and timbre relationships that change the way we would think about that.
Yeah, I know in Arab and perhaps in other countries, but especially in the Arab, because one of my colleagues in school was a Arab percussionist,
Yes.
and she said, in my culture, we not only have tonal scales, but we also think about rhythms that way, almost like rhythm scales.
Yeah.
Right? Meter.
Yeah.
And how the syncopations line up. So I know it's a different way of thinking. We're not used to thinking that way in the West.
Yeah. So because of this, we have this perhaps continued disconnect between the music of Europe that is largely informed the way music therapy has been practiced. And while we're often using djembes and congas and so on, it's that's the instrument that you hit because it's accessible,
right?
And not so much about here's the music that actually aligns with, that was created through this instrumentation, and has a history, has a meaning,
huge history, rich, and powerful. I mean, we always repeat, rhythm is the organizer and energizer of music, so why not fully utilize rhythm if it's that important, which I think it is.
And timbre, and pitch.
Yeah, and timbre, of course.
And thinking about all of those things in terms of the traditional context. But to be able to play, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just never do. The basic drum set beats that we understand that came out, in rock, that came out of the blues and jazz, originally came from traditions from the African diaspora.
That's right.
And sometimes we can go back to that source, and there's a richness there that informs the way we would think about playing a drum set or playing a djembe or playing a conga.
Yeah.
And we don't have to reinvent that.
Exactly. Oh, yeah, it's all there.
Yeah.
The song forms, call and response. Yeah. I mean, that goes back to the more ethnic folk music. I had a client in one of my TBI groups who was Persian, and we'd be, improvising, or I'd play some folk music, or, standard kind of music therapy repertoire.
Yeah.
But when he would sort of be involved, but when I would play doom tak 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 doom tak doom tak tak doom,
Yes.
he would start to smile, and he would start to move his body in a completely different way.
Yeah.
And he would animate, and he'd come alive, and he even stood up, and he'd start to dance, and that is the power.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that, ability to recreate that music, and you don't understand that that is the music from his culture, then you can't access it. You can't, I'm sorry, but you cannot create that.
There's, right now the field is talking a lot about cultural competency. I prefer to refer to cultural humility, which doesn't talk necessarily about a set of tasks, but a mindset that might encompass tasks and also always keeps in mind that we can improve and reach out and be open. With that in mind, I think, look at these traditions. You give that example, and I think that's a demonstration of musicality and cultural humility. Here's this moment for us to connect in a way that's meaningful and important and impactful.
Yeah.
Another thing, having gone through all of the research and seen that there, while perhaps not as frequent as an improvisation occurs, or even recreative accompaniment using folk songs, using percussion, there are those moments where people are using traditional music, whether it be gamelan or daiko drumming or Cuban drumming, whatever the case, where people are thinking in the mode of traditional recreation as best as can be accomplished in that context, and allowing that to also have impact.
One of the things I found through the use of traditional folk music from West Africa, Brazil, Caribbean, wherever, is that there's something that is more perhaps expressive and permissive in singing a song or a chant, basic song. And these are easy songs that I just call them, hear it, sing it songs, right?
Yeah.
Just songs that you can repeat a few times and everybody can join in.
Yeah.
Right? And they don't necessarily know the language of right? So they don't know what they're saying. I can say this is a song about such and such, but the important thing to me is that a lot of my clients need songs that are accessible but also meaningful. So I can still use traditional music. We don't have to just improvise. This is not improvisation. I'm using a simple folk song that comes from a culture. I'm accompanying with rhythms that come from that culture. What my clients get out of it is something that they can immediately plug into. A lot of these songs have open vowel sounds, very few consonants, very long vowel sounds, and they're built into the music is this openness and in invitation to say, wow, to open up, to celebrate, to almost yell or celebrate. And to me, that I use those songs for that reason. And I think them actually not having to think about the lyrics. And of course, we can go to the end of lyric discussion, lyric analysis, what the words mean to you. But I think sometimes it's better to not have any meaning imposed in the music, and the people that are singing can decide what it means for them, but still enjoy the traditional music. So I think that's another layer of usefulness when we learn and recreate and deliver and invite our participants into the world of music from other countries.